Will Archie and Lilibet one day become prince and princess? That is a question that's been raised, especially after Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey, where they very strongly implied that Archie did not get the title of prince because of his mixed race heritage, and because he wasn't a prince, he wasn't given security, which is also because of his mixed race heritage, which was entirely inaccurate because there's a lot of prince and princesses in the United Kingdom that don't get 24-hour security like those senior members of the royal family. And even in the interview, Meghan disputed herself and her own claims by explaining that yes, the letters of patent say Archie doesn't get to be a prince right now. But eventually, when Charles becomes king, that might one day change. However, should the British monarchy give titles to Archie and Lili? Should they allow them to have access to that? That's an interesting question, and one we'll discuss today because I have an idea about how the British monarchy, especially because Harry and Meghan right now are such loose cannons, the way they can kind of easily remove the possibility of Archie and Lili being tied further to the working members of the royal family when it comes to titles. I think there's an easy fix for that. And so I'll give you my suggestions, kind of explain a bit about the title situation as well. And if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany, and we talk about everything related to royal, so that's news, gossip, fashion, even television shows and movies. We discuss it all right here, so if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And like I said, today we were talking about this issue of titles because it is quite complicated a bit, but it's also rather clear. And Harry and Meghan actually are contributing to the confusion by kind of flipping sides and sharing different things about what they want for their kids. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want a title for him. In fact, a quote says, "This is just their attitude, that they want a normal life for their children." My oh my, times have changed. And at the time, Archie was only eligible for the title Earl of Dumbarton. And Harry and Meghan apparently did not like that. So they decided to decline it altogether. And so I even have a quote here. They didn't like the idea of Archie being called the Earl of Dumbarton because it began with the word dumb, and they were worried about how that might look. It wasn't just Meghan who pointed out the potential pitfalls, it also bothered Harry. Now, what's interesting about this as well is probably the people of Dumbarton were not so enthused by that assertion by Harry and Meghan, especially because it does sound very much an American thing to not, fully understand that. And Meghan has always been thinking about the American audience. She doesn't care about the UK. And so, but anyways, when it comes to royal titles, the system is very, very clear on this. And this goes back to the letters of patent from 1917 when George V was king and he decided there were too many princes and princesses running about. So he just decided to streamline the process a bit. And this is something that happened in 1917, but this is something that's still continuing to happen throughout Europe, as many of the royal households are trying to whittle down who has certain titles because honestly, there's just not so much a need to have, 20 people with princes and princesses titles, especially, in a place like, Sweden or Norway or Denmark. They're very much narrowing down who has the title, for example, of His or Her Royal Highness. A lot of the houses are doing this. So when it comes to the letters of patent in 1917, here's what it said. That the children of any sovereign of these realms and the children of the sons of any such sovereign and the eldest living son of the eldest living son of the Prince of Wales shall have and at all times hold and enjoy the style, title, or attribution of Royal Highness with their titular dignity of Prince or Princess prefixed to their respective Christian names or with their other titles of honor. So what this means is that, so for Her Majesty, she has 4 children, and in her 4 children, so she has, when it comes to the line of succession, it goes through Charles, then Andrew, then Edward, then Anne. Because when it comes to the line of succession, at least when Anne was born, if she had any younger brothers, and she had 2, they superseded her in the line of succession. And so when it comes to the royal family, so Prince Charles, his 2 sons had the title of prince. And because Prince William is the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, then his children are also given the title of prince and princesses. Well, now originally it was just going to be Prince George with the title of prince. Her Majesty did amend the letters of patent to include Charlotte and Louis because they would be the sons of, the children of the king. So it would make sense, and they'll be the children of the Prince of Wales before long. So it made sense for them to have those titles. Prince Andrew decided to give the title of princesses to his 2 daughters, and it made sense at the time because Andrew, there just weren't as many in the line of succession at that point. When Beatrice was born, her father was, so it goes Charles, William, Harry, Andrew. So she was 5th in the line of succession when she was born. Princess Eugenie was 6th, and they were in those spots for a long time. And so it did kind of make sense. Now, when Archie is born, he is 7th in line to the throne, and his sister is 8th. And so again, they are kind of close to the top, but they didn't amend it because, especially as all the monarchies are whittling down their members, Archie and Lilibet will have no working role in the British monarchy, especially now. Even before, though, they left for Brexit, Archie and Lili would have never had a role in the British monarchy. Besides being extended family members, they would get to go on the balcony, they get to go to family events, but they would not be working members of the royal family. It just wasn't going to happen because they don't really need them anymore. And so then, looking at Her Majesty's line, you have Prince Edward, who is next, and his children. And for him, he decided not to give his children prince and princess titles, even though he could have given them that. So we have Lady Louise and Viscount Severin. And so those two have, because Viscount Severin is a title attributed to the oldest son of an earl. So eventually, though, there's been rumors that Edward would become the Duke of Edinburgh. That has not happened, and so I don't know if that will actually happen or not. And so then, maybe James would become the Earl of Wessex. That might be how it works. But anyways, just looking at that is how it works. And Princess Anne decided so her husband could have been given some sort of royal titles, which would have gone to his children, but they decided to decline that. And so we just have Zara Phillips and Peter Phillips. And that makes sense. And all the monarchies are doing this. And so Harry and Meghan's complaint that their kids were not given the title of prince and princess really just doesn't make any sense. So even, for example, in the Swedish royal family, they just released a picture of who are members of the royal household. And it's just the king, his oldest daughter, who's Crown Princess Victoria, her 2 children, so Estelle and Oscar, and then her brother and his wife, so that's Carl Philip and Sophia. And then you also have Princess Madeline. And so there are those 6 other kids. The king has 6 other grandchildren, but they are not a part of the official royal household in terms of working royals. And they are only styled now Her Highness, His Highness, instead of their Royal Highnesses. And they also, so it's changed, even Denmark. So only the crown prince and whoever is his firstborn son, in this case, Crown Prince Christian, will be the only ones getting money. And so the crown prince and princess have 3 other kids who have already been told, basically, you're on your own. And so, but this is how all the monarchies are working. And Prince Charles has always made it very, very clear that he wants to slim down the monarchy. And this is why we just got him, Camilla, the Queen, Prince William, Catherine, and Prince Harry on the balcony for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. So I don't really think that really the monarchy really ever planned that much to have Harry and Meghan's kids. They were never going to amend the letters of patent, regardless of who Harry married. So his kid would have always had either the Earl of Dumbarton title, or they could have declined titles altogether. But now it makes it more complicated because Archie and Lili really don't at this point have any ties to the United Kingdom. Archie was born there, but he only spent the first, 9 months of his life there? Maybe less than that, 8. And so he has really no ties to it. Lili definitely doesn't. She's never even been there. It doesn't really make sense to have Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet gallivanting across Southern California. It just doesn't make a ton of sense anymore. So I think the Charles and William can amend the letters of patent that kind of, puts off, giving Archie and Lili those titles, because again, they don't really need it. Harry has even said recently his home is in Santa Barbara. Well, if it is, why would your kids need a prince and princess title? It just doesn't make any sense. I think what it comes down to is Harry and Meghan, even though they say they want distance from the monarchy, they're still trading off their royal titles to get ahead in Hollywood or to try to hustle for, producing jobs or whatever they're trying to do. And so if their kids are prince and princess, that gives them kind of this extra little bit that they can kind of throw around. However, again, I don't think they need it, because if these kids have no connection to the UK really, except for something rather superficial, like I'm all for them having, Earl of Dumbarton titles, sure, but, or, Lady Lili, that's fine, but they don't need this high-ranking prince and princess title because they'll have no role in the monarchy. And then if you look at the Cambridge kids, it is a little bit different because yes, they're slimming down, but I think even though Catherine and William are thinking Charlotte and Louis won't be working members, I think they will be if the monarchy still continues to survive. And the reason is that we're going to lose the Duke of Kent, the Duke of Gloucester, Princess Alexandra, Prince Michael of Kent. They're all older, and, eventually once Her Majesty passes away, they will be kind of shown the door a bit, given off into their retirement. They're all in their 70s and 80s, so, they deserve to retire. And they don't do a ton, but they are, working members of the royal family. And so it'll just be down, and Harry and Meghan left. And so it's pretty much just down to Charles, Camilla, Catherine, William, Princess Anne, who is also like her brother in her 70s now. And then you have Prince Edward and Sophie, because Prince Andrew was kicked to the curb. And so you really have I think a lot slimmer than Charles initially intended, really, of working members of the monarchy. So I think at the end of the day, and because the UK is so kind of, especially with the Commonwealth and everything, I think they will need more members. So I think Charlotte and Louis will be working members of the royal family. And I think as well that their kids probably, if they're raised in the UK, need those, potentially could get those titles of prince and princess. I think the simple fix is to amend the letters of patent to say that only children of the direct line or the grandchildren of the sovereign who live in the UK, who are raised in the UK, go to school in the UK, are the ones who can get a prince and princess title. And the reason I think that is because when you have the title of prince and princess, regardless of what you're doing, you're representing the monarchy. And so if Archie and Lili, I'm not saying this is true, but if, they're falling out of nightclubs, if they're, I know Harry and William did that too. But, if they're raised in California, I just don't think there's a need to have them be, what are they going to be? The prince and princess of Montecito? Like, that's just silly. And people make this distinction a lot with, the Greek royals. For example, they still call themselves, King Constantine, Crown Prince, Pavlo, I think. It's Crown Princess Marie Chantal, and I can't remember his name. Pablo. Anyways, and so the Crown Prince and Princess, and they had their firstborn daughter, Princess Olympia, and everything. And so they have all these Greek names for their kids. I don't think any of them actually speak Greek. So why are you calling yourselves Prince and Princess of Greece if you don't know Greek? And if you've never spent hardly any time there? For a while, they could not go to Greece, so I kind of understand that. But as far as I know, I don't think really any of them speak or know Greek. And so it's like, it just seems silly for you to go, I'm the Prince and Princess of Greece. But I don't know any of the language. I don't know that much of the history. I'm just here. Look, I'm in a magazine, because that's what Crown Princess Olympia is, or sorry, not Crown Princess, but Olympia is doing. And, she went to school in New York. She's grown up in London. So it's like, there's just not a connection to make the title even make sense. And so I think for Archie and Lili, the best thing to do is say, well, if you live in the UK, if you go to school in the UK, then you can be a prince and princess of the UK. If you're growing up in California, if your friends are Hollywood celebs, you don't really need that title. Because it just seems like a way, again, for Harry and Meghan to monetize their titles to try to get ahead and use their children. So I think, and Archie and Lili would have never been working members of the monarchy, because Prince William's kids will grow up and they'll be working members. And then again, this is all how it goes. So, if you look at Prince Andrew, his two daughters are not working members of the royals. Harry is in the same boat as Andrew. Even though Harry is further in the line of succession, he's in the same spot that Andrew was. And I know this is kind of complicated and people are like, well, why does this all matter? It matters because if you're looking at the monarchy and the future, you really need to make sure, especially now, there's been a lot of talk about getting rid of the monarchy, republicanism. What you don't need is somebody pulling it down. And that's what Harry and Meghan are doing right now. And they may use their kids to do the same thing. Now, if Archie and Lili get the title of Prince and Princess, it's fine. It's like, at the end of the day, who really cares? But I think for kind of the future, and especially if somebody is representing the UK, those titles are really important, and who has them actually does matter. So guys, let me know what you think of my idea. I think that's a simple suggestion. It's actually one the Swedes use as well. So part of being in the line of succession, and this has been a question for Princess Madeline's children because they live in Florida. Yes, there is a princess in Florida, and actually her firstborn daughter was born in New York, and she was born a blood princess. So I just think that's, just to Harry and Meghan's, yes, there's a real princess in Florida, and you don't hear about her a lot because she doesn't make a fuss about herself. She's just raising her kids in Florida. Anyways, and so there is a question about her kids because part of being in the Swedish line of succession is that you actually have to go to school in Sweden or be in a Swedish school. So obviously if they're in Florida, apparently there is like a Swedish church because Princess Madeline went to the Swedish church and I think they were actually speaking Swedish. So maybe there's enough of a community there where she has like this small little Swedish school to still keep her kids with their full titles and in line of succession. I'm not entirely sure, but I do think it's interesting, and I think it's a route the British can go as well, because again, regardless of what Harry and Meghan are doing, every time they use their titles, they're representing the monarchy to a certain extent. They just can't totally get away from it. Unless they just go by, hey, I'm Harry Mountbatten-Windsor and I'm Meghan Markle. They could totally do that. They'd actually have a ton of my respect if they did that and just were trying to do their own things. But they're constantly using their titles all the time to remind us, yes, that they are royal, and also really to try to make money. And so it's just kind of sad. And I think at this point, Archie and Lili just really don't need the titles if they don't have any connection to the UK. If Harry's never going to bring them, they're never going to meet the Queen, why even bother? So anyways, guys, let me know what you think of my plan. Do you think it works? Should the monarchy take my suggestion? I'm just over here in the States somewhere, just kicking the dirt. So anyways, guys, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.